This is Death by Disney, the series where I watch and review every single Disney film on my quest to become the most prolific reviewer of all time. Today I watched Disney's 1959 adventure film Third Man on the Mountain, and I have pretty mixed feelings about it. I ended up giving it a 6 out of 10. What's interesting is that it's actually hard to criticize this movie because it accomplishes exactly what it sets out to do. The problem is that what it sets out to do isn't necessarily something I found especially compelling, so let me explain. The film wants to immerse you in the world of 19th century mountain climbing. It's about mountaineering, the culture surrounding it, and life in a tiny Swiss village. Alongside that, it tells a coming-of-age story centered on Rudy, a young man whose father died climbing on a mountain known as the Citadel. Rudy dreams of becoming a mountain guide himself, but his mother and uncle desperately want to keep him off the mountain because they're terrified he'll suffer the same fate as his father. There's also a small romance, some family drama, and conflicts between climbers, but what's refreshing is that there isn't really a traditional Disney villain compared to some live action Disney films from this era, not to mention any titles, where characters can commit really terrible acts and then everything is magically forgiven at the end. The conflicts here feel much more human. Most disagreements come from pride, ambition, or fear rather than outright evil. One thing I really appreciated is the historical inspiration behind the movie. Although the mountain is called the Citadel, it's actually based on the Matterhorn, one of the most famous peaks in the Alps. The film itself is adapted from James Ramsey Ullman's novel Banner in the Sky, which fictionalizes the first ascent of the Matterhorn. The story takes place in 1866, just 1 year after the Matterhorn was first successfully climbed in real life in 1865. That historical backdrop gives the whole film an extra layer of authenticity. Rudy is actually a decent protagonist. The acting across the board is perfectly fine. Nobody delivers an earth-shattering performance, but to be fair, the script isn't asking for one. The standout is Rudy, played by James MacArthur, who was in his early 20s during filming. And what I liked about Rudy is something surprisingly rare in Disney's teenage protagonists from this period. He's introspective. He realizes that his biggest flaw is rushing into dangerous situations without thinking about it. Near the end of the film, he squeezes through an impossibly narrow gap while climbing and almost gets himself trapped. Instead of blaming someone else, he recognizes that this is exactly the kind of reckless decision he always makes, and he starts to sort of beat himself up about it. It's a small moment, but it gives him more self-awareness than a lot of Disney heroes from the 1950s, especially the teenage kind. Now, is Rudy an incredibly deep character? Not really. At the end of the day, he's a young man trying to follow in his father's footsteps and prove himself. But he's likable enough that you want to see him succeed or at least not die tragically. The real reason to watch Third Man on the Mountain isn't the story. It isn't even the performances. It's the scenery. Jeez, this is such a gorgeous movie. It's stunning. So Disney filmed extensively in the Swiss Alps, and unlike many adventure movies from the period, they didn't fake everything on a Hollywood soundstage. Yeah, there are a few painted backdrops, especially during some shots when they're looking downward, but when the camera points towards the mountain, you're looking at the real thing. And you can tell, right? The actors are really climbing. They're they're hanging from cliffs. They're scrambling across the rock faces, and you can absolutely tell the Technicolor photography makes the Alps look spectacular. Even today, more than 60 years later, some of these shots are breathtaking. And the filming actually was really dangerous. One of the most interesting facts about the production is just how physically demanding it was. Before filming, members of the cast and crew received mountaineering instruction so they could safely work in the alpine environment. James MacArthur, the star of the movie, actually slipped and fell during production, but he escaped serious injury. A cameraman wasn't so lucky. He fell and reportedly broke 3 ribs. Watching the movie, I'm honestly amazed no one was killed. Like, the climbs look incredibly dangerous, but fortunately the production seems to have taken safety seriously, which fits nicely with one of the film's central themes, that a good mountain guide is responsible for protecting everyone in their care. So why only a 6? This is where my mixed feelings come in. I respect the movie. I admire what it accomplishes visually. Technically, it's impressive. Um, Visually, as I said, it's beautiful. Historically, it's interesting, both from a cinematic perspective and the actual time period it's filming. But I just didn't find it that engaging. The plot is straightforward. The characters are solid, but kind of forgettable. And because I'm not particularly interested in mountaineering, the movie never fully pulled me in emotionally, if you know what I mean. But I mean, if you're fascinated by mountain climbing, classic adventure films, or Disney's live action history, I think you could love this movie. For that audience, this might be an easy 8 or even 9 out of 10. For me, it lands at a 6 out of 10, as I said. Not because it's a bad movie or a poorly made movie. It's really well made. It didn't really connect to me. And that's because movie reviews are subjective. And while I can appreciate what the film is doing, it just wasn't something I connected with on a personal level. Third Man on the Mountain is a well-crafted, ambitious Disney adventure that succeeds in capturing the excitement and danger of early alpine climbing. It's one of Disney's most visually impressive live-action films of the 1950s, even if this story never reaches the same heights as its scenery. If you're a Disney completionist or someone who loves mountaineering, it's definitely worth checking out. But I mean, if you're not going to miss anything by not watching this. Otherwise, it's a respectable film that I admire more than I actually enjoyed. So 6 out of 10. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time as I continue my quest to review every single Disney movie ever made.